I'm gonna do my daily exercise. I have to, switch hands so that you don't get, really, really muscly on one hand. You want to have equally muscly hands. That's how this works. Okay. And so I've never used this before. This is a brand new bottle. Okay, there we go. Now, my understanding is that you're supposed to apply it thick. Man, I didn't see it moving. It is thick, y'all. Look at that. It won't come out. I'm literally tipping it over in my hand. Okay. I'm going to continue using this brush since I no longer trust it to do stuff. Here we go. Now, my understanding is that you want to get nice and thick with this. So, that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to push too hard. I want this to sit on the surface and leave nice, dark gray stuff in between, in the cracks. But I do want to get the sides. Yeah, I don't actually know if this is going to look all right, but... And I might actually consider just taking these off. So yeah, I used the blue tack. It seems to do a decent enough job on this guy if you apply enough of it. I've identified something better for painting models on this rack. There's one. This has a really weird texture. And it makes a sound when it's coming out of the pot. It's kind of gross, to be honest with you. Not gonna lie. I haven't seen any guys or people from YouTube use this particular product in this specific way. And there's a really good chance that I haven't seen that on YouTube because it's a really stupid idea. But see, that's what happens when you only publish your successes. There is this idea well, I don't know about the science world, but certainly in the world of psychology, back in a different life when I was a grad student in psychology, we had this phenomenon or this concept, idea, theory. It was called the file drawer problem. And so the file drawer problem was all about how basically what we as scientists publish. And I use we because at that time I don't know, I was sort of part of that world, not completely, but I don't know, sort of, kind of. It's a long story. Maybe I'll share it one day. But the point is that the papers that we publish, psychologists, scientists, they typically communicate our successes. So, we have a theory, a hypothesis that applies to this theory in this way. So we do some experimental studies. Maybe we make some undergraduate students really uncomfortable for half an hour at a time, or make them do something silly. Psychology is it's a cool field, but it depends on active participation by a pretty select group of individuals. The research institution undergraduate student. Anyway, so we test our theories and we publish our successes because there's really no place to publish your failures. Journals, at least back when I was in that world, they didn't really publish journals, or what we called failures to replicate, right? So you had this usually you're testing this theory that if people are confronted with a certain stimuli, then they will react in a specific way. And so in order to advance the theory, you say, okay, well, sure, maybe it's true that they react in this way. But under what situations do they not react in this way? And in this manner, you extend the knowledge by finding some boundary conditions, right? So so this is true, but when is it not true? That's just as important as knowing, the effect, is knowing the effect's limitations. But you typically start off those papers, at least if you're not already famous in psychology. If you're, a graduate student trying to make a name for yourself, or a relatively new researcher, you're, your first or second year at an institution, and you're publishing because you want to get tenure, because you like to not starve. And so, you do some experiments, and you find that, I did everything the way I was supposed to, but nothing happened, right? If I do this and this, then my research participants should have done this, and they didn't. We call this a failure to replicate. So basically we said, hey, look, this thing that was supposed to be a sure thing under these conditions, it didn't happen. And we usually, or often, let's say often, I don't want to say usually, because that tells us about, it's a different statement. When we fail to replicate, we often chalk it up to, oh, you know what, I screwed up somehow. My research design or my experimental design was flawed. As my old dissertation advisor way back in the day used to say, you got too cute. In other words, you got too fancy, and as a result of trying to get too fancy, you screwed something important up without realizing it. And so when we fail to replicate, or when you can't find the results that you were expecting, even though you did everything exactly the way you thought it was supposed to go, what happens to that paper? I mean, you did the research, you still have a spreadsheet somewhere with a bunch of research data from the people who participated, but what do you do with it? You failed to replicate. I'm going to wash this off. Well, what you do with it is you put it in your file drawer, or you drop it in file 13. Basically, you throw it away. You may have written up the paper, you've written up the results, but you never publish them because you can't get them published, which means, for the scientific among you, that the only things that are being published, generally speaking, and I'm being very, very general here, there's lots of nuance that I have no business speaking about. This is just my understanding of things, but generally what happens is that all the times that you didn't replicate this human reaction to a stimuli, you don't publish. The only time you publish is when you do succeed. And so what happens here is there's an inherent bias that all of us, all research psychologists are fairly aware and cautious about. There's just not a ton of what we can do about it, but it's basically, I keep saying we. I am not a research psychologist. I never have been. I was training to be one at one point, but that was a different life. I still say we. Pardon me for the lack of specificity there. I work in higher ed. I am not a psychologist of any sort. So anyway, psychologists keep publishing only times when this methodology worked, but we're not publishing all those times that it didn't work. So, is this phenomenon true? Does it apply to all people? Or, are we only seeing the effect? Do we only think is this as big, as important, as world-changing, because all we're seeing is the few times when we were able to, replicate those results? Or, if we had seen every bit of research that everyone did, whether it was successful or not, would we be seeing a different pattern? So, this is a long, possibly boring story to any of you who have no desire to know how the scientific process works as one non-scientist understands it. The point is, we learn from our mistakes. I would say, and a lot of people would agree, that we learn more from our mistakes than we learn from our successes. That is certainly true for me. And there's a lot of scientific reasons behind, why this is true and why we do scientific testing and statistical research in that way as well. It's all, above the purview of this channel. But the point is, maybe there's techniques that I'm watching on YouTube that I think are supposed to work because of this file drawer effect. In other words, I'm only seeing the times that it works. I'm not seeing all these times that these techniques did not work. I'm sure that's not really the case. I'm just being a chatty Cathy here while I ruin these perfectly beautiful bases. I don't know, man. It's not filling me with confidence. I've gone through half this jar. Look at this sad brush. Look at that sad, gunky, gross brush. Sigh. I mean, I can't even, I have to go all the way in there. The brush itself won't even pick up anymore. But that's okay. This is the last base that I'm going to ruin. And if this doesn't work, hopefully I'll be able to remove the paint and start again. Because this is not looking at all like what I was envisioning. I was envisioning, I don't know, a dusty red, kind of hugging the contours, and that's really not what I'm getting. But you know what? Maybe let it dry. All the YouTube videos I saw with these technical paints from Games Workshop, they're all about, they look gross when you put it on, but they dry and they look amazing when they dry. So there it is. Resin bases, painted, brush, ruined, hand, gross, also file drawer problem. Well, I wanted you to see what this base looks like really close up. Got a little macro lens for my phone. See how giant my finger looks? So this is what that base I was using looks like. It's got the primer. It's this blue resin. There's a tacky stuff. And you can see the white Corax primer layer. You can see the black wash. And you can see gunk from these guys. So this is what it looks like. I just finished applying the, is it Martian iron crust to the primed and washed bases. And yeah, I don't know, man. Not liking where this is going, but there is that texture. All right, here's the bases, and it is really not what I was hoping for. They look pretty crummy. I mean, compared to that, so I'm going to try to salvage these. I don't know if I can, but they're not all the way dry yet. I've just regretted this decision. I'm going to try to restore them to look like this. And since it's not all the way dry, I'm hoping that some soap and water will take off that top layer, leaving that bottom layer kind of intact. So I'm going to give that a shot. Okay, so I'm going to try to salvage these. I don't know if I can, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to get a little bit of dish soap. Man, if anyone's watching this and you're cringing right now, I apologize in advance. I've never done this before. I will note that I even washed my sink area just for you. So I'm going to take this blue tack stuff off of the bases. Actually, I'm going to leave this alone for now. But these, that have all that gunk on it, I'm going to, there they go. I really hope this works. Wish me luck. I mean, the worst that can happen is I have to buy these again and wait for them to get shipped, and then I'll now know not to do that with these and save it for other bases where it'll look fine. Clearly I have to watch a few more YouTube videos on how to use both resin bases and maybe these Citadel technical paints. Alright, so these are going in the trash. I'm hoping that these are wet enough that I can just brush them off. I'm going to use this stiff brush. I hope I'm not causing more damage. Here we go. Ugh, my brush is all red. And I gotta tell you, man, that looks positively heinous. Like some kind of butchery happened in my kitchen. Moments like these, I'm sure that my girlfriend is really happy I don't live in her house. I've made a mess. No, you're not watching a kitchen show. There is no cooking happening here. Ah! Alright, let's dry these off and see if we can salvage them. Dry, 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 my pretties. You know, all told, they don't look so bad. Yeah, they've got some rich stuff in between. But, you know, I think that makes them unique. Gives them some character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over them again with some black wash. I still have some in my wet palette here. And we're going to see if we can make them, I don't know. Let's see if we can salvage these. Okay, so what I'm going to try is I'm going to try to just spread a black wash all over these guys. And for the black wash, it's as it was before, just a little bit of the matte black with quite a bit of water. So it's this guy with some water on my crappy brush, and so I'm just gonna apply kind of liberally but also kind of haphazardly. This is supposed to be natural terrain, so I'm gonna be a little loose, and so you see how it's kind of all over the place there. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. Now I'm going to hit it with a bit of water to make it sink all the way into the crevices, and it's going to give me this nice kind of almost a dry brushed effect. So the surfaces that you can see are going to have, you know, kind of that outline, and you'll see how it's going to pull in different places. Makes it look kind of natural. I like that. So that one's done. I'm going to let it dry. Now that one was the one that didn't have a lot of red stuff on it. This guy had plenty of red stuff, and there's plenty left over. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like after I do this washing. So here we go. Dab, 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 dab. I think I need more. So there's going to be plenty of variation to these, and I think that's okay. This is, you know, supposed to be natural terrain. I really like these. They remind me, well, I think they're based off of that geological feature. I think it's in somewhere in the UK. I think it's, you know, like Scotland or Ireland. I'm an American, which means geography isn't my strong suit. My early education was in Texas, and for those of you who don't know Texas very well, A, congratulations, but B, our geography, you know, basically consists of this here, y'all. This here's Texas, and over there's, you know, who cares? Yeehaw! Sorry if that was loud. Now, that is not, of course, an accurate description of geography education in Texas. But it sort of kind of feels that way sometimes, or felt that way. And it promotes, you know, Texan stereotypes, which I'm sure everyone is okay with. I don't know. I'm kind of liking the way this is looking. I mean, I certainly could not have achieved this on purpose. Maybe some of the really good YouTube guys who are painting and selling their miniatures, you know, professionally painted. That's not me. That will likely never be me. I can't imagine replacing my current income with income coming off of that. But it might be a limitation of my imagination rather than anything else. And that's okay. So maybe we can think of this as, I think it was Bob Ross who used to call these happy little accidents, where he put something on his canvas. It wasn't really what he was looking for, but he made it turn out all right in the end, and I think that's what's going to happen here. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to leave that one rock sticking out just pink. I think that's going to be a nice, I don't know, a nice touch. Maybe we'll just kind of, yeah, let's just leave it alone. Don't get cute. Okay, I'm going to let these dry, and hopefully we'll have decent looking bases for my Hellblasters. Alright, here are the bases, all dry after my attempt to recover. And yeah, I can see some of them are redder than others, and I kind of like the way it looks. There's a pinkish tinge, but otherwise you can see all the detail. It looks pretty cool. So now that I have these in a decent state, I'm gonna try to ruin them again. So what I want to accomplish here is I want to do some dry brushing on the bases. So basically get some highlights of kind of like a darker gray, I mean lighter than the base itself right now, but just to kind of pick up the highlights of these kind of raised areas. It's a technique that a lot of people use and I've used in the past, but I haven't used recently. And by recently, I mean, you know, 20 years or so. So I'm afraid of getting these bases that I'm, you know, pretty happy with. I could totally use them just like this, and potentially ruining them like I did with the original red gunk that I tried. But this channel is about learning, and I'm, yes, in this for the learning. So I'm gonna give this a shot. What I am gonna try is a little bit of this guy, uniform gray. Yeah, there we go. Uniform gray. And since I'm dry brushing, I haven't seen a lot of this on videos. But I suspect if I'm going to dry brush, I can't use the wet palette because the paint's supposed to be a little thicker. And I'm going to dab it and kind of work it into the brush and then rub it off on this paper towel to make sure that I get the excess off the liquidy part and just use the dry that's on the brush. So I can't use the wet palette, I don't think. This may be a mistake, but what I have is I took one of the little parchment paper or whatever paper this is, and I am just putting it on top of my closed wet palette, and I'm going to use that as, I guess, a dry palette. Sure, why not? Let's call it that. All right, so I'm going to open this guy up. I'm going to add a little dot right there. Okay, maybe a bigger dot. There we go. I don't think I need too much. So like I said, I haven't done this in a long time. There's a really good chance I'm going to mess it up. And I got this brush. It's a makeup brush. But I've seen some of the YouTube pros using makeup brushes for dry brushing in large areas like this. So I'm going to give it a shot. So wish me luck. Man, this is a little scaredy poo. All right, I'm going to start with this guy. And already I can tell there's too much just too much on this one right there. I'm going to rub it off with a little bit of water. All right, let's try that again. I'm not sure what I'm accomplishing here. I mean, I guess, yeah, I can see the raised edges. I'm hitting them all right. I mean, there is an extra layer of paint for sure. And I can see how I've gotten some of the edges. Let's try a couple more, see if I get better at this. So let's look at these side by side. So this one has the edge, the dry brushing. This one doesn't. I mean, yeah, I can see an extra kind of layer of color there. Okay, okay. Let's keep going. Okay, I think I'm in a good place with these now. They're a little more rock-like. They have a bit of color to them. Let's see if I can do a close-up. So that's what they look like now. They're a little more kind of multi-dimensional, a little more unique different from each other. I don't know. I think they're pretty rock-like. I'm gonna call it happy. Now, if I can only get my models to look as decent as my bases. I think I'm gonna have a good time. Oh, look at that. See that red stuff still in there? I kind of like how that turned out. I mean, it's accidental for sure, but you know, you guys won't rat me out, right? So the next thing I need to do to finish these bases off is just give them a kind of a black surrounding, so kind of all around the bottom part of this base, right, like right there, a black disc, just so that they look like an actual base and not just a chunk of plastic. Thanks for watching, everybody. This was your average bear learning some valuable lessons about how not to use texture paint on already decent looking resin bases. I hope you learned something too. And as always, please be nice to someone today.